Hello, future sonographers, and welcome to Simple SPI. Today's video is going to be on scientific notation. What is really important to understand is that scientific notation is going to help simplify really large numbers or really tiny numbers. Examples of these can be a number like this, very small numbers like these. And we're going to work through these to see how to make them go into scientific notation. First, with really large numbers like this, you want to add a decimal to the very end. Notice the decimal after the 4. Move the decimal to between the first two whole numbers. A whole number is a number between 1 and 9. 0 doesn't count. So notice the decimal moved from the end to between the 8 and the 4. You want to round to the hundredths place. That's 2 places after the decimal. Add times 10 after the number. And then here's where the secret comes in. You want to count the number of spaces that the decimal moved. Okay, so it started at the end, and you want to count how many spaces it moved to get to its final location. I counted, and it is 13 spaces from the end all the way to where it is now. You want to add that number to your 8.46 times 10 and add that as a positive exponent. There is your answer. Now on to the next one. It's still a really large number. You want to add a decimal to the very end, just like that. Move the decimal to between the first two whole numbers. Round to the hundredths place, 2 spaces. Add times 10 after the number. And count the number of spaces that the decimal moved. In this one, it's a big one. 19 spaces. That number is added as your positive exponent. Remember, really large numbers get a positive exponent, just like that. The next really large number example, like this one, again, add that decimal to the end, move it to between the first two whole numbers, round it to the hundredths place. Add times 10 after the number. Count the number of spaces that the decimal moved, which is 10, and add that number as your positive exponent. And there's your answer. Now let's talk about how to do scientific notation for really small numbers. Now, really small numbers are going to be numbers that come after the decimal. These numbers are less than 1. The first step that you want to do is move the decimal to between the first two whole numbers. Now you may notice that small numbers already have the decimal put in them. The last ones, the big numbers, you had to add the decimal to the end. This one, you're going to move the original decimal to between the first two whole numbers. Now remember, zeros don't count. So the first two whole numbers are 5 and 4. The decimal goes right in between there. Remove the zeros. Round to the hundredths place. Add times 10. Count the number of spaces that the decimal moved and add that number as a negative exponent. Really small numbers get a negative exponent. And there's your answer. Another really small number. You want to move the decimal to between the first two whole numbers. Remove the zeros. Round to the hundredths place. Add times 10. Count the number of spaces that the decimal moved and add that number as a negative exponent. Very small numbers get negative exponents. And there's your answer. The last really small number example, wow, that is a very small number. Move the decimal to between the first two whole numbers. remove the zeros, round to the hundredths place, add times 10, count the number of spaces that the decimal moved, and add that number as a negative exponent. Remember, very small numbers, numbers that are less than 1 get a negative exponent. And there's your answer. Now let's talk about how to go backwards, how to go from scientific notation to really large or really small numbers. And it's very easy. Here is an example of a positive exponent. This means that we're going to get a large number. You want to move the decimal point to the right, the number of spaces of the exponent. Just like that. It is 10. We moved that decimal 10 spaces. You want to add zeros for any of the empty spaces, just like that. Move the decimal, and there's your number, just like that. Last example here. Here's a negative exponent. This means it is a very small number, less than 1. You want to move the decimal to the left, the number of spaces of the exponent. The exponent is 6, so we moved that decimal 6 spaces. Add zeros for any empty space. Add a 0 in front of the decimal, just like this here. And that is your answer. It's as easy as that. Thank you for watching our video, and I hope to see you for the next one.